The Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab, episode 906 for Monday, December 20th, 2021.
Greetings, folks, and welcome to the Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab, the show where you send in your tips, you send in your questions, you send in your cool stuff found. We take all of those things, we string them together into an agenda, hopefully succeeding in setting us up for success, and success being that each and every one of us learns at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include boxofawesome.com, where code MGG gets you 20% off your first box. Zocdoc.com/MGG, where you can download their free app today. HunterDouglas.com/MGG to take advantage of all of the stuff they've got going on there. And Upstart.com/MGG, where you can consolidate your debt. And we'll talk more about each and every one of these in a few minutes here in the, interspersed throughout the show. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in balmy Fairfield, Connecticut, this is John F. Brown.
I know. It's like we're recording this on Friday the 17th, ahead of a weekend of a snowstorm of sorts, he at least predicted here in New Hampshire. But yeah, it was like what, 50 degrees or something outside. So yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. But I'll take it. It's fine. It's fine. How, other than the weather, how are things for you, Mr. Braun?
Yeah.
Just meh?
There.
All right. Well, 'tis the holiday season. It's not always easy. It's like there's always, things to navigate. So, with the, all the craziness going on still makes navigating slightly more complex for many of us. So, yeah, it's how it be. Thankfully, the show is still here. As much change is afoot, the show is still here. Wait, if change is afoot enough to be considered change? I don't know. And is change feet or is change only a foot? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Either.
I could. I guess it depends. Yeah. All right. Let's. Shall we get into some quick tips, or should we have fun with idioms? And is that an idiom or is that just a phrase? Could it be an idiom? Right.
It's a thing.
I don't know. I'm an idiot about this stuff. So I'm an idiom idiot.
All right.
Save us, John.
Oh, Robert's going to save us. Robert says, you may know this. I didn't. I have my music in Plex. I'm also a Sonos customer. I added Plex as a source for music in Sonos. That works, but I don't like the Sonos search and the way it shows only one album at a time. Here's what I learned. You can stream from Plex to Sonos. Open a Plex on your phone or tablet or their new app called Plex Amp, which is dedicated to music. Navigate Plex to your music. In there, you will have various filtering options. I like to show albums sorted by artist. In the upper right-hand corner next to the search is a box with some lines. If you click on that, you get a list of devices, which includes AirPlay and Sonos. Pick the Sonos device you want and play music to it. I'm still trying to understand how this works, but I really like the 3 albums in a row scrolling interface of Plex. By the way, another quick tip is that it looks like you can use Plex Amp to stream from Plex to CarPlay.
So this is all exciting. I knew about the last one, which is also a great tip. The Plex Amp app, which in order to use it, you have to be a Plex Pass customer. That's not part of Plex's free offering. But if you're using Plex, I always recommend people start with Plex for free because you can set it all up and truly use it. And then decide, if you wind up using it a bunch, then become a Plex Pass customer so that you can do things like Plex Amp and offline downloads for like watching on the airplane and, things like that. And Plex Amp works fantastic with CarPlay. I love it. I had no idea about this Plex being able to stream directly to Sonos. I'd done it via AirPlay because many, but not all, of my Sonos speakers are AirPlay capable. And so you could just do it that way. But when you put this tip in the agenda, I was like, what? And so I launched the app, and because I have Sonos devices and I have Plex. And sure enough, there's a link Plex to Sonos, step that you go through. It's like any other OAuth thing where, it's like it brings you to the Sonos site and you have to grant Plex permission to do the yada yada. And it takes all of about, 12 seconds. And then all of my Sonos stuff started showing up in that list. And this is one of those things that shows us the sheltered box that we Apple users live in, because Apple Music does not let you do this. It will you can play Apple Music from the Sonos app, but you can't play to Sonos from Apple Music other than AirPlay, right? If it's AirPlay, it's fine, but you can't control your Sonos with the Apple Music app in this same way that Plex can. But also Spotify happily can, and other things can. It's just that Apple doesn't want to make that integration happen. That's my interpretation. I don't know that I've heard anything about that behind the scenes, but I mean, obviously Sonos would happily do this if they've done it with Plex and Spotify and others. So I'm guessing Apple's the holdout here. And it's not all that surprising. Apple likes to be super in control of everything. I don't know. Maybe it seems weird. Well, you know what it is? Apple has that HomePod thing. So maybe they don't want to, murky the waters, as it were. Is murky the waters an idiom or a phrase? I don't know. See? Don't know.
Yeah, I should get one of those little HomePods. It was on my list of things to do.
Buy two. They're small. I don't know.
And then I could do stereo.
You could do stereo or you could do multi-room. I mean, either either one. Yeah, cool. All right, we're having fun here. Hopefully you are too. We have a quick tip from Tony. He says, I never thought of this trick with messages, but it works great. When talking to Siri, you can say, Siri, reply with audio. And what it does is it allows you to record a voice memo or voice message to send to someone via messages without having to that's the trick to triggering that with your voice. So when text translation messes up, as it so often does, just say reply with audio and send someone your actual voice saying the thing that you want to say. I like that. I never thought about it. And he also points out, he says, I can also say, Siri, tell my wife with audio, I'm on my way soon. And what will happen is Tony's wife, in this case, would get a message in Tony's voice saying, I'm on my way soon, which is pretty darn good. So I like it. That's pretty cool. I love these little, it solves some of that, like texting from the car kind of thing is really where I think I would use this a lot, because texting, like when I've gotten pretty comfortable with it, like, replying to a text and saying, hey, comma John, exclamation point, great to hear from you, period. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, period. And like that sort of rolls off my tongue without really even thinking about it. But, and then it reads it back to me and it usually gets it right, but that's somewhat pedantic. And if you want to say something long, it might be better to just actually say the words. So I like it. That's good, Tony. Thanks, man. Okay. What do you got? You got more?
This.
Go ahead. Yeah.
In the chat room, our friend Dave says HomePod Minis are on sale now for $79.99. Wow.
Oh.
Better jump on that.
That's a good deal. That's a really good deal. Buy 3. Seriously. Like you could deck your house out for way less than $500. That's not a bad deal. Huh. Then they sound, I do not, I had one and I returned it, but only because I'm not interested in changing platforms, right? Like I have more Sonos speakers throughout the house than I know what to do with. Truly, and I realize that comes across like a complaint. It's not. I lead a charmed life, but I just didn't need yet another platform to have to deal with, and we have the A lady all over the house, so that's our voice assistant that we've standardized on, and again, it just wasn't for us. But it sounds good. I would happily listen to music on that thing. It definitely has my endorsement as a decent, especially for, I would say $100, but now today, $80. I would say that, it's a good speaker with, built-in Siri. So there you go. Cool.
All right. And we have a reminder here from Donna. Kind of gruesome, but the iPhone feature to turn on before you die. The new legacy contact settings in iOS 15.2 let you specify who can access your Apple iCloud information after you die. And here's how to set it up. And we'll link to an article that'll tell you how to do that.
Sure.
So get on that before you die.
Yeah. That's that fits our change as a foot theme. I mean, because that is one of those changes that sort of happens. But yeah, good. All right, yeah, we've got a link in the show notes for that Apple's page about it. Cool. Back in episode 904, so we had a special episode 905 that released last week with Jeremy Butcher from Apple, which was wonderful to have, and I hope you all listened and learned as much about Apple's business essentials. There it is. I think they're doing a great thing there where they merge support and all that. So a week ago in episode 904, I was talking about, in Cool Stuff Found, I was talking about my new Neato D10 robot vacuum, which we're still loving. And I mentioned how I ran it at night at 3 a.m., but only works for people that don't sleep on the same floor of the house that their vacuum is on, because, you don't want that thing roaming around in your in your bedroom while you're trying to sleep. Well, Rob has an answer, and it might even be a better way of doing it anyway. So Rob says, I'm not sure if this would work with your model of RoboVac. It will, I'll talk about that. But he says with my Roomba, he says, I have it integrated with IFTTT, and have an automation set for when I leave my home Geofence with my iPhone, the vacuum runs. And when it notices that I have returned to my home Geofence, it tells the vacuum to stop running and dock itself into the base. Might want to consider doing that. He says our dogs go ballistic at night when we are in the bedroom trying to sleep downstairs and the vacuum tries to run upstairs. Just a thought. Yeah. And what's really interesting is basically the same day that Rob wrote this, I got a notification on my phone from the A Lady app from Amazon's Alexa, and it was offering to do the same automation and Geofence my vacuum to do exactly the same thing. So you could do it with IFT, obviously, but the Amazon app will also do a geofenced sort of thing for you. So I like that idea. Run the vacuum when you're not home. Interesting. Fun. I love this stuff. I love these automations, like just the simple ones that make life, just a little bit better. The best kind of automations are the ones that you set up and get tweaked perfectly and then forget about them. And like a year later, someone asks you, hey, what automations do you run? Like, you know what? I have no idea, but they run and I love it. So I can see that easily becoming one. You just come home and your house is always beautifully vacuumed. That would be amazing. I have fully adopted iOS 15's focus into my life and workflow, John. And one thing that I wanted to share, the idea, and was that this morning, the morning that we're recording this, my son is on a plane, waiting to take off. We just got a text from him saying that he They're delayed by 15 minutes or something, waiting for one more passenger, which will be the one sitting in the middle seat next to him, according to him, which sort of stinks. He thought he had it empty. But I like to put my phone on Do Not Disturb when I sleep at night. But knowing that my son had to get up early on the other side of the country and get a Uber or whatever and get to the airport with his cat and all this stuff, I was like, well, I definitely want to be able to have him text me and wake me up if necessary. But I don't just want to not turn on Do Not Disturb. And this is what Focus is all about. In fact, I had already created a focus group that I call Nuclear. Nuclear for the family, not nuclear for like the option. And what Nuclear says is that 3 people can interrupt me, my wife and my 2 kids. So our nuclear family. And no one else. So before I went to sleep last night, I turned off my sleep focus that sort of automatically comes on for me and turned on Nuclear. And it actually offered, it was like, do you want me to, turn this off at 7 a.m. or what? And I'm like, no, I might want to sleep a little past 7 a.m. if I'm allowed. And so I just had it be on, and I'll turn it off when we're done with the show here. But that way texts from my family can get through. And emails from my like whatever, it just lets them through. Text, Slack, it knows, which is very cool the way it sort of offers to link a contact. Like I got a Slack message from you the other day, John, and it was like, do you want me to link this to John F. Braun for focus purposes? And it was like, yeah, I do. That sounds like a good thing. So just thinking about different ways of using Focus, this Nuclear option, you could call it the family option if you don't like using the word nuclear. I figured I'd share. That's what we do on Quick Tips here. Have you been messing with Focus at all, Mr. Braun?
No.
I recommend it. It's one of those things. When you first asked me about it on the show here, when I was beta testing iOS 15, I was like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. No. And then, I don't know, I had something come up where I dug into it. It was like, I see the light now. Okay, yes, I definitely want to integrate this into my life. Like I have a podcasting focus, but I can't really use it yet because I have yet to upgrade the machine in the studio to Monterey. But I'm pretty much ready to do that so that I can have my podcasting focus, which would actually stop my family from getting through, but allow you and my, other co-hosts that I work with, like, Paul at Geek Gab and Shannon at Small Business Show, to get through. And that way, just keeps things from being distracting, like I am now with all the messages coming in from my family about my son's flight delay. No middle seat, taking off now. Good news. See, these messages are not always terrible to get. All right. We have a bunch of tips and questions and then maybe some cool stuff found at the end that I want to get to. The next thing I want to get to, John, though, is our first couple of sponsors, if that's okay by you.
Excellent.
All right. Hey, who doesn't love to live well? To be perfectly at ease, in comfort and in style? Well, our sponsor, Hunter Douglas, can help you do just that with their innovative window shade designs, gorgeous fabrics, and control systems so advanced they can be scheduled to automatically adjust to their optimal position throughout the day. Smart stuff. Love it. They really, they make it so these shades diffuse harsh sunlight and cast this glow across the room that looks amazing. They make it so that you can enjoy the view outside while protecting your privacy inside. They've got this superior insulation in the shades that provide you with warmer feelings in the winter, cooler in the summer, and they lower your utility bills at the same time. They really know what they're doing. And Hunter Douglas has their PowerView technology, which is what you connect to with your phone and all that, so that their shades can be set to automatically reposition for the perfect balance of light, privacy, and insulation, morning, noon, and night. So live beautifully with Hunter Douglas, enjoying greater convenience, enhanced style, and increased comfort in your home throughout the day. Visit hunterdouglas.com/MGG today for your free Style Gets Smarter design guide with fresh takes, creative ideas, and smart solutions for dressing your windows. That's hunterdouglas.com/MGG for your free design guide. Our thanks to Hunter Douglas for sponsoring this episode. Next up is Bespoke Post with their Box of Awesome. This winter, you can upgrade your daily routine with Bespoke Post and their new seasonal lineup of their must-have Box of Awesome collections. Bespoke Post partners with small businesses and emerging brands to bring you unique goods every month. I'm looking right now. They have the Hibernate box, which are these leather slippers that just look super cozy. That seems kind of amazing to me. They have the Parlor box, which is a great way to like showcase your best booze so that, you know, you get the people coming over to the house. You can make it look nice. And they've got this Weekender. I have one of these things that they sent me. It's a carry-all. Great bag, really strong. The way it's got a hinge on it, but it's like a duffel, more than a duffel. It's really cool. You got to check these things out because they know what they're doing over there. No matter what you're into, Box of Awesome's got you covered. So from those winter cocktails, like I said, to cozy threads and even camping gear essentials, Box of Awesome has collections for every part of your life. To get started, it's awesome. No pun intended. You take the quiz at boxofawesome.com, and then your answers will help them pick the right Box of Awesome for you. They release new boxes every month across a ton of different categories. It's free to sign up, and you can skip a month or cancel at any time. And each box only costs $45, but it has over $70 worth of gear inside because of the way they're able to do their partnerships. And plus, like I said, with Box of Awesome, you're supporting those small businesses, which is great. Get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter the code MGG at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com, code MGG for 20% off your first box. And our thanks to Box of Awesome for sponsoring this episode. All right, John, let's go to Dusty, shall we?
Indeed. So, Dusty's going to help solve your problems, maybe.
My problems, definitely. I'm stoked about this. Yeah.
So Dusty says, since upgrading to Monterey, I have had this issue happen twice. The search in Mail just refused to search. I would enter a term or email address and no results. I could launch Safari, go to my webmail, and search through the webmail interface before I would get a single result. The first time I went through several painful steps and something in them fixed it, including forcing Spotlight to reindex, rebuilding my inbox, and even deleting my mail account. Honestly, I don't recall which one fixed it. I did it again this morning and found this article, which we'll link to, and it has several of the steps that he used before, but it had one that I had not. Shut down the app and relaunch while holding the shift button. This worked. I guess that clears the slate. And it may never work again, but wow, that was simple. So, okay, I didn't know about that.
Huh. Yeah, okay, so I have this problem, I would say maybe once a week. And for me, the solution has been quit the app and relaunch, and that usually, frees things up and then search works again. Holding down the shift key, if memory serves, that is also the way to tell the app to forget about open windows, right? Like there was that whole thing that came up. Maybe was it Catalina? I don't know. A couple of OSs ago, there's this feature, where like you can be in the middle of pages or whatever and quit pages and relaunch, and all your docs come right back up, even the untitled ones, right? Like the ones you hadn't saved. And I think holding down the shift key cleans that, saved state out to Dusty's point. So but it must do other things too. So this is interesting. I'm definitely going to remember this for the future. So, yeah, I love this. I love it. Hopefully I get to use this and then never have the problem again. That would be my personal preference. But maybe I'm just asking for too much change. All right. Yeah, more on this, or are we good?
No, we're good. I don't think I've had search issues with mail. If anything, I don't like the latest version because when I do a search, it finds stuff in other mailboxes. It's like, I don't want you to do that.
So you might already know this, but I'll share it for you or for anybody listening. But when you do a search in Mail, the search is, I'll say it's live in that once you've put your search parameters in, you can start clicking on different mailboxes and it will narrow the search to only those, or you can go to the top of the list and choose all, and then it will, search everything. And it also works if you click the mailboxes, like if you've put, and maybe this is another quick tip on its own, but you can put mailboxes up in the favorites bar of Mail, just like you can in Safari, very similar thing. And you can click those to do searches too. So I have like our MGG, regular mailbox for feedback at macgeekgab.com. And then I have our premium mailbox for premium at macgeekgab.com in my favorites up there. So I can bounce around, and I'm often like searching for a thing, because not only are your questions in there, but our replies are also archived in there. So it's easy to kind of find. That's our way of doing it. Maybe one of the 2022 changes, going with this theme, will be that we will finally get a way of searching the show notes for all of you. In fact, based on some things that I know about what I think is going to happen with a couple of like infrastructure things, I think that might actually just become a byproduct of that. So that might, I didn't even think about this. Huh. Yeah. All right. So see, it's good. But anyway, yes, you can. So you can filter it to a mailbox and even filter it to a smart mailbox. So I don't know. But are we done with that one?
Mm-hmm.
Did I get all crazy? Okay. All right. I'm back. Eliot needs help. Sitting in an easy chair 5 feet away from my Synology router, why is it that my laptop usually connects to the slower, more distant access point of a Netgear repeater in another room that is far away and has several walls between us? I use this great utility from Intuit Bits called Wi-Fi Signal. I'd never heard of this before, John. So we're going to have to put that in the show notes. And he says, I use Wi-Fi Signal to display my connection quality and speed in the menu bar. My goodness, how do we not know about this thing? I feel like we need to take a detour onto this. And he says, I've been noticing this change since I started using my new M1 Pro MacBook Pro in Monterey. This was not the behavior of my previous Intel machine. Upgrading the OS, rebooting the router, resetting Wi-Fi in network settings, toggling Wi-Fi off and on. Rebooting the Mac seemed to make no difference. Interestingly, other devices such as iPhone or iPad from the same location connect through the Wi-Fi signal of the Synology router. Thanks for any assistance. So this is frustrating. I dug in a little bit more with Eliot on this because I wanted to make sure we understood the scenario right, although there's lots to share that's not just specific about Eliot. He has several Synology mesh points, as well as the Synology router. And then he has also added a Netgear repeater to this. Now, with Wi-Fi, it is ultimately up to the client device to make a decision about which access point to connect to. If all the SSIDs are the same, then that decision is just made based on what it sees about these other devices. If the SSIDs are different, then it will choose the one at the top of the list if you go into System Preferences, Network, Wi-Fi, Advanced Wi-Fi. I know, it's a lot, but that's where that list is. And you can reorder the list. Whatever's at the top, that's what it's going to prefer. It's a top-down kind of thing. So I dug in and asked Eliot if his Netgear extender had its own unique SSID, its own unique name, because that way it would explain why if his MacBook Pro had that at the top of its list, well, it would choose that if it sees it, even if it's further away than one of the others. It turns out no. His Netgear repeater shares the same SSID as his Synology mesh network. So that's where things start to get interesting because, as I said, ultimately the client device, in this case, the MacBook Pro, is the thing that decides, right, John? However, a mesh network can give hints to the device, suggesting that it choose one thing over another. And I'm wondering if having a repeater on the same SSID that the mesh does not know about might be the source of confusion here. because we don't know exactly what hints it's getting from the mesh network, but it's possible it's getting some hints that then don't reconcile with this one sort of rogue SSID. And so the MacBook Pro's like, all right, well, y'all can't decide what to do with the other one, so I'm just going to connect to this one over here. Again, it's really hard to say because, we aren't programmers at Synology or Netgear, so we're not exactly certain what these things are telling your devices. So I have a couple of ideas, John. Do you agree with the premise that I've got going on here?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I mean, if you don't, like that would be, frankly, would be even better.
No, and I actually did this in the past. I had a Netgear extender, but it connected to, until I got a beacon, Era beacon. I actually had an extender because I was getting terrible coverage in one room, but it always connected to that.
No matter where you were.
When I was close to it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I got it. Yeah.
So I haven't seen this confusing behavior, but I think I see where you're going.
Yeah. So I think this one of these things is not like the other. Which was that Sesame Street or the Electric Company where that song came from? One of these things is. Anyway, I think that's the crux of this issue here. So there's a couple ways to solve it. One is to replace it with another Synology mesh point so that they are all talking with one another. I think that would probably solve this, although that requires spending some money. And we like to try and solve things with the equipment we have on hand because that's more fun sometimes. The other thing to do would be to swap and move that extender somewhere else and swap its position with a Synology mesh point that, you may still run into the same wonkiness, but what your, work patterns and life patterns are. So you could say, all right, well, if I know it's going to try and prioritize this thing, why don't I put this thing near wherever I mostly am with that device? And maybe that's a way to solve it, right? Like just leaning in, embracing the problem and going with it that way. So that would be another way. The third way would be to change the configuration of that Netgear extender and set it to have its own SSID, its own Wi-Fi name, so that you can choose when you are connecting to it or not connecting to it. And that may or may not wind up being a helpful solution, but like these are the things that we have available to us. It's hard coming up with the one solution when we're not there to troubleshoot Wi-Fi because so much of it is location based. But other than trashing the extender, or maybe eBay the extender and use some of those funds to fuel the purchase of another Synology mesh point. Although, we know that Synology's coming with their Wi-Fi 6 stuff in the first quarter, so maybe we want to wait on that stuff. I don't know. But anyway, those are my thoughts on this. Yeah. So if it were me, well, as I said earlier in the show, I lead a charmed life. Wi-Fi stuff shows up at my house, so I choose to use same branded. I like if you're gonna have a mesh, take advantage of the mesh. That really is my like. If money is no object here, take advantage of the mesh and only just live within the mesh. That's gonna work better in almost every case. So, all right. While we're on the subject of mesh, John, Joe has a mesh question. Let's see. Let me see if I can read this. He says he has a Nokia mesh system, a Beacon 3 with 4 devices. Nokia's Beacon 3 is carrier grade mesh, now sold only through carriers. Okay. He says in my home network, I have 13 wired connections, 33 wireless on 2.4 gigahertz, and 12 on 5 gigahertz. And likely would have another 15 wireless devices if they would all work at the same time. He says, I'm having lots of internet issues as of late, mostly Wi-Fi, but general internet as well. Okay. He says, I'm thinking about switching to maybe the Eero mesh, but it's expensive and I want to share some details here and get your advice. Some of his issues are my smart home devices will randomly not work. Most of the time, he says I can unplug and replug them and they will work again, but that's not reliable. And the same ones seem to be the ones that always go out. There's about 6 of them that seem to sort of float in and out. It seems unlikely that all of these 6 would have hardware issues. I agree with that. He says, I use HomeKit devices mostly, and so when the devices do not work, it implies in-home connection issues, it seems, since HomeKit doesn't go out to the internet to activate a device like Amazon and Google do, as I understand it. You're right. Your HomeKit devices might also support Amazon or Google and therefore go out to the internet to activate themselves. But for HomeKit, you're right. It's talking amongst your network there by and large, unless you've got a HomeKit hub, and then that might talk out to the internet so you can do things remotely. He says, I have 3 TiVo units and often will in-house stream from the TiVo downstairs to the TiVo upstairs. Lately, during a 2-hour-long movie, the connection dropped maybe 4 to 6 times, requiring us to reselect and restart the movie. Could be the TiVos, but along with the other internet-related issues, it could be bandwidth or perhaps the beacon processing or something. AirPlay from an iPhone works poorly at best. So, he says, I know a lot of smart home devices might be an issue and that they aren't working all the time and taking bandwidth. I think both of you guys have TiVos, so maybe you have some experience here, but I'm just looking for specific thoughts before I spend $500 replacing my network. Okay. So he also asked, he said, the Beacon 3 info from this Nokia mesh indicates that it can handle up to 64 devices, although it isn't clear if this is the total number of devices, wired and wireless, or just wireless. Is this a normal number? What does this limit mean? So those limits are generally ballpark figures that reflect the capabilities of the CPU in an average environment, right? So for every device that you have that's actively talking on the network, especially if it's talking across the internet, the CPU in your main router needs to think about that traffic, process that traffic, route it in and out back to the right thing. Because, when you talk to the network, to the internet, every device in your house talks as one IP. Data that comes back in has to be sifted by your router so that it knows to assign it to the right devices coming in. That's what NAT, network address translation, does. And so you need a CPU that can handle it. And when they say 64 devices, that's generally what they mean. Many people have more devices connected. If you wind up overtaxing the system, you'll see it slow down or things like that. But I don't think you just see devices fall off. And with what you added up, before your 15 extra devices, you were at like 63 or something. And so with the 15 extra devices, you're at 78. Okay. And this reminds me, John, of an issue that we talked about back in like April, post like lockdown, when we had our first band rehearsal here in the studio, and my bandmates showed up and couldn't get their iPads online, but they could connect. Like it would see the Wi-Fi network password hadn't changed. Everything was all good. They just weren't getting IP addresses. And it dawned on me that I might have run out of addresses in my DHCP pool. And so I quickly, after we finished playing a song or something, I came over to the computer, which is the same one that's right here, and went into my router and opened it up. And instantly everybody was like, oh, whatever you did, that fixed it. That was great. And that explains some of the smart home issues that I was having that are very similar to what Joe is describing here. So check to see how many. It's possible your DHCP pool is set to 50. Right. And that would completely explain all of the symptoms that you're seeing here, including the AirPlay stuff, although AirPlay is a little wonky sometimes anyway. So that's where I would start. Check the DHCP pool. And either way, I would just start by expanding it. If you can, add 50 devices to it or move it from, a net mask of 255.255.255.0 to 255.255.254.0. That will open up a whole other, I forget the way to talk about it, but it's like a /23 instead of a /24, I think is is the right way to say it, or it might be completely wrong way. But find a way to add more addresses to your DHCP pool. Even if you just have one, even if it is just 3 255s and a 0, like that should still allow you a couple hundred addresses in your pool. But it might be that your router is set to only do 50. And if that's the case, open it up to 100, see what happens. Failing that, but that's really where I would start. But failing that, do you have any switches in your network? And when I ask this, I'm really asking, do you have multiple switches in your network at different locations? Is anything hardwired throughout the house? Is it possible you've created a network loop? Because what you're describing, where devices can't talk with each other, you imply, like your gut seemed to be telling you that this was a bandwidth issue. Well, if you've got a loop happening on your network, that can chew up all your bandwidth and cause all manner of, wonky problems. So check to see if you've got multiple switches. And I have found, even with smart switches, that their loopback detection isn't foolproof. So if you're a fool like me and you create a loop, it doesn't necessarily mean that the switches are just going to magically deal with it for you. They may be a little more graceful in just shutting off that segment of the network, maybe, but it's not like you just get a free pass and you do whatever you want and your switches will sort it out for you. That's generally not the case. And then when you add a mesh network to it, mesh networks are also dealing with loops. In fact, they intentionally create loops and then block them on the fly so that you get this mesh that all the data can pass through but doesn't loop through. So it's possible your switches in your mesh are not compatible with each other. I don't know anything about this Nokia mesh, so I can't really speak to it. But if it's an enterprise-grade mesh, it may be expecting enterprise-grade switches and everybody to be speaking, some flavor of spanning tree protocol or rapid spanning tree protocol or something like that. And if you do have switches, but they're dumb switches and they don't support that, that could also be part of the problem here. Are the offending devices connected to or near a specific access point? Joe mentioned there were 6, right? That kind of were the flaky ones. It's possible one of your access points, Wi-Fi is just being flaky. And if the devices that are affected are near that one, that's another thing. I don't know. I thought those are, well, I mean, I don't know, but those are where I would start. I don't know. What do you think, John?
I'm with you. I like the idea of, choosing the right IP range, so that you have enough addresses, though. I can't remember, I don't even know how many things Eero can handle. I don't even think there's a setting on Eero for
there's a setting for the size of your DHCP pool for sure. And I think there has to be. The way I use Eero here, it doesn't handle my routing. My Synology router does. So I can't easily look.
Okay.
Maybe I can sign into my dad's Eero from here, but that might take a little more time than I want to spend, because I do have Eero Pro so that I can do remote network management. Let's see, is it going to let me in? Maybe Eero Pro. I got to send a code to my email and yada, yada, yada. So this may or may not get there, but you should be able to find it in the network advanced settings to where you can control, what you've got going on. Brian Monroe in the chat room is helping us out. He says, normally the Eero assigns IP addresses in the 192.168.7.x network range, so you get 254 addresses in the DHCP pool. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. And looking at my dad's network, DHCP and NAT is in automatic mode, so I can't see it from my remote thing. But yeah, the subnet mask is I can't see. It's not my place to see it right now. So, but Brian Monroe has the answer. So your Eero probably is set to assign 254 addresses. It reserves the one for itself, the one for the broadcast, and the rest are all part of the DHCP pool, which is smart because it limits the scenarios where this kind of thing could happen. So, yeah, I've had a couple people ask me lately what my favorite mesh is. And in fact, I had a friend that found my mesh article, my chiropractor, in fact, found my mesh article. He was like, yeah, he's like, I found that. He's like, it looked like it hadn't been updated in a couple of years, which is true. But part of the reason it hasn't been updated is it was evolving for a long time. Like I was updating that article monthly. And then it just got to the point where it was like, yeah, all my advice stays the same. So it hasn't been updated for Wi-Fi 6. But the good news is all of the vendors in there, except Synology, but we know that's coming, have updated for Wi-Fi 6. But my advice remains exactly the same, except I would recommend getting the Wi-Fi 6 units. If you're going to bother to spend money on a Wi-Fi right now, get Wi-Fi 6. And the Eero and the Plume sit at the top of my recommendation list. You're not going to go wrong with either one of them. There are nuanced scenarios where I like one over the other, but in my house, I bounce back and forth between using either of them as sort of my primary Wi-Fi, unless I'm testing something where I, obviously going to, do things differently. But otherwise, I'm either running Eero or Plume in the house. And quite frankly, I'd lean towards Eero. I'm not, Plume is rocking, but they really seem to be focused on the integrated market. Like, they've got their deal with Xfinity, which is great. So I'm not entirely sure. Like, I get a more consumer-focused feel from Eero than I do from Plume, but that may be an unfair classification. I think at the moment I'm using Plume, and it works. It's been great. So I'll probably bounce to Eero at some point in the next couple of weeks, just because I like to go back and forth. And as I said, and then I'll probably have the Synology thing to test again, and all that's good stuff. So, all right, yeah, moving along.
Yeah, I'm glad Eero fixed that WPA3 thing.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I want to test it with that. That's that. I knew there was a reason in my head why I wanted to test the Eero stuff. So yeah, it's fun. I love digging it. It's been a little while since we've had a little mesh network segment here, but Eliot and Joe were unknowing conspirators in leading us down this path. I like it. It's good. All right, Russell John wrote in with some more data on this M1 Mac memory leak as it relates to choosing to have a larger mouse cursor, right?
Yes.
Which still seems bizarre to me, but I take us there, if you would, please.
Sure. So Russell says, I don't usually listen to the live show as I am working at the time, but last Friday I got the chance to join the live stream, and as it turns out, it saved me from getting caught. Outstanding.
I love it.
I have a MacBook Pro, M1 Pro, just a few weeks old, 32 gigs of RAM. Yes, 32 gigs. I had been working for a few hours, and up comes this morning, you are running out of memory and swap space from Clean My Mac. Activity Monitor was the next thing to check, and it was showing orange on the memory usage tab. Apple's own spreadsheet numbers was to blame with a lot of gigabytes of memory usage. And yes, I was using a large cursor as it works better on my external screen, so I knew the cause immediately. So I didn't get caught. I knew the answer because I heard it on the show, but I am not happy that it was numbers that was the culprit for me. That is, I think, a full fish shake. Yes, I'm going to propose a double fish shake. At Apple, that their own program caused the issue. It is really shocking that one of the core application programs supplied by Apple can bloat out the memory on a 32 gigabyte laptop when using the system to change the cursor. Fortunately, I got the warning from Clean My Mac before anything locked up solid and was able to save and quit numbers and restart and continue. Really poor performance from Apple, but the M1 Pro MacBook Pro is a fine computer. Very happy with it in a lot of other ways.
Yeah, I hope Apple fixes this, man. Like, I mean, I know they will. It just seems so bizarre. What a weird thing. I'm assuming they know about it. Maybe we should maybe I'll send them a note and make sure, like, you guys are aware of this, right? Like, you getting to work on it there? Yeah. Yep. All right. We got a couple more tips and questions. We've got a couple of cool stuffs found. And if it's all right with you, we got a couple more sponsors, John, that I would love to tell everybody about.
Excellent.
Hey, so if you dread looking at your credit card statements, you are not alone. Debt can feel crippling, but our sponsor, Upstart, can help you on your path to financial freedom. Whether it's paying off credit cards, consolidating high-interest debt, or funding personal expenses, over 500,000 people have used Upstart to get one fixed monthly payment. And that's because Upstart is the fast and easy way to pay off your debt with a personal loan, and you get to do it all online. What you also get is that Upstart knows you're more than just your credit score, and it is expanding access to affordable credit because unlike other lenders, Upstart considers your income and your current employment to find you a smarter rate for your loan. And it all happens, it starts anyway, with a 5-minute online rate check where you can see your rate upfront for loans between $1,000 and $50,000, and you can receive funds as fast as one business day after accepting your loan. So find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/MGG. That's upstart.com/MGG. Don't forget to use our special URL to let them know that we sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based upon your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Again, go to upstart.com/MGG, and our thanks to Upstart for sponsoring this episode. All right, so has this ever happened to you? You need to see a doctor. You search and find one that looks good. And you wait on hold to book an appointment. You rearrange your schedule. And when you finally go in, you find out, oh, this doctor doesn't take my insurance. There's a solution. Just download the free app from our sponsor, Zocdoc. That is the easiest way to find a great doctor and instantly book an appointment. With Zocdoc, you can search for local doctors who take your insurance, you can read verified patient reviews, and you can book an appointment in person or video chat. You get to do it in the app. Never wait on hold with the receptionist again. So whether you need a primary care physician, a dentist, a dermatologist, eye doctor, or other specialist, Zocdoc has you covered. And you're going to do it by going to Zocdoc.com/MGG to download the Zocdoc app to sign up for free. You get to join millions of people who use Zocdoc every month. I've used it too. It makes perfect sense. They make it super easy. And those reviews are killer, right? Because you really get to see, okay, this is the kind of doctor I like. Or, you know what? What's the next one say? It's good, man. Zocdoc makes healthcare easy, and now is the time to prioritize your health. Go to Zocdoc.com/MGG and download the Zocdoc app to sign up for free and book a top-rated doctor. Many are available as soon as today. That's ZocDoc.com, Zocdoc.com/MGG. And our thanks to Zocdoc for sponsoring this episode. All right. Hey, you know, we have our chat room, John, at live.macgeekgab.com, where we all get to interact together while we record the show. You could interact there at other times, too. Nobody's stopping us. It's always open. The door's always open. The light's always on. Listener Brian Monroe, longtime listener of the show, had some comments about the process that we were talking about with Joe and his mesh acting wonky and even actually it was more about Eliot and whether or not he should be using a repeater. And I presented all of the options I could think of with that, right? One of them was replace it with something and keep it in the mesh. But, you know, there were others that go through it. And Brian Monroe was like, yeah, but dude, you know that the right answer is to trash that repeater and put that in. Put in something that actually fits the mesh. And I agree with that. For me, in the troubleshooting process, when we're doing this show or when I'm dealing with clients, I really think about it the same way. I learned over the years that it was way better for me if I, as the consultant, explained all of the options to my, to my client, and then said, but if it were my system, here's the one I would choose, and here's why, right? But then letting them freely make the choice, and then of course I was there to be their tool to implement whatever solution they would want. And I do the same here in the show. It adds to the conversation. It keeps things interesting, but it also gives you that perspective of, oh, wait a minute. Okay, there are 4 different ways of approaching this problem. This is the one that guy thinks is best. But for your scenario, you might have other needs or limitations and that we don't know about. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, great. So there it goes. And I know we have a lot of consultants who listen to this show. You are a sizable segment of our audience and one of the most vocal segments of our audience. And it's fantastic. I love it. It's no great surprise. I always say to podcasters, you attract an audience of people like you. And so, the fact that both John and I have done some consulting over the years in various capacities, of course, we attract people that do the same. But there is a craft to that business. And like I said, a lot of it applies to how we conduct the show here. But I'm always, working on that craft. The idea for me, it was out of necessity, how I came up with it. I mean, I do like to help people, but I also like to get paid. And I found that if I was letting the customer drive all the choices, then they wouldn't be unhappy about the choices that I forced upon them, right? And then it would make it easier to get paid because I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm helping them, not just fixing their computer without them involved. And that engagement I found to be very, it was rewarding in not just a financial sense, but it made that part of it way easier. It's also much nicer. As I say often, and sort of the way I think about it, John, is when I'm with a client, and I mean, I apply this in other aspects of my life, but speaking in this regard, when I'm with a client, I want to make sure that we are both on the same side of the desk and not across each other from the desk. Like I want to be next to them, working with them to solve their problem with their computer, not them over there and me, them versus me and their computer on the other side of the table, where it's like somehow it becomes my fault that they had a problem with their computer that they called me about. It's very easy to happen because it's frustrating when you have a problem with something. Like your pipes are leaking, you call your plumber and you're like, dude, just fix it. Well, it is your problem. The plumber can leave and go home to their house where there is no drip. So, it's that same kind of thing. Like, I appreciate you helping me, but as the consultant or the plumber or, whatever it is, we can pave the path for that to be there. Like, I am here to help you. And then just keeping that in mind the whole way through and explaining options is a great way of doing it. So anyway, like I said, I love this stuff. I love the craft of it as much as I love actually doing it. So figured it was a good little ramble to have. I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's better that it's you and the customer versus the problem versus you versus the customer.
Yes. Yeah. And it's very easy to accidentally wind up in the latter scenario. And when you are there, it's super difficult to get yourself out of that. Like, it's like, how is this my fault? I've had to say that to some people. I'm like, well, we need to reset here. Like this problem, I'm here to help, but we both need to remember that this problem isn't my fault. Like I didn't cause this. Yeah. Yes. I always, the other thing I used to say, John, is it was my job to prioritize other people's emergencies. And I didn't like that part of it, but that was a necessary part. You wake up and you got 3 appointments and then someone calls with an emergency and it's like, okay, how do I address that? And it's all contextual, right? Like what do I understand as the severity of what to you is a critical emergency? Just kind of how it has to be. I would imagine that, I was never saving lives, fixing people's computers. I can only imagine what it's like for people in like emergency rooms having to do exactly that, but with the stakes probably being a little bit higher. In fact, I'm understating that, a lot higher. So, all right, should we? You want to talk about Jamie, John? Share Jamie's tip.
Sure. So Jamie says, and I can confirm this actually, many Mac Mini users, both Intel and Apple Silicon, have reported problems getting the display to come back on after sleep. For anyone who has a Mac Mini, if you drive your display with HDMI and have wake from sleep problems, get an external USB-C to HDMI adapter. I think any external adapter will work. I am using an Anchor adapter. I also use the HDMI adapter built into the OWC Thunderbolt 3 mini dock with good results. I've never needed to turn my Mac Mini off with the power key while using an external HDMI adapter. It was happening every day or two using the internal adapter. I spent many hours trying to diagnose and cure my wake from sleep issues, including many hours on the phone with an Apple senior advisor. There was no resolution. So if a dongle that costs less than $20 fixes it, that's a win.
That's a win. Yeah.
Yeah, personally, I had issues too. So I don't use the HDMI connector on the Mac Mini. I got a USB-C to DisplayPort for my primary display and a USB-C to DVI adapter for my secondary display. So I can confirm this.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that I haven't seen this on my M1 Mini because with two monitors, I have to use HDMI for one of them, and then going out the USB-C port, for DisplayPort for the other. Just because that's the way the M1 chip works. There's no workaround there. You can't do two out of DisplayPort. One has to be HDMI, one has to be DisplayPort. So, but I'm thinking about Lisa has an Intel Mini at the house, similar to yours. I think it's actually the same model as yours, John. And she occasionally has problems. I think we are running straight HDMI there. Maybe it's time to replace that and route things differently. So you're just going out the USB-C port and going to HDMI that way. Yeah. Okay. I like this idea. All right.
Yeah, and I think the USB-C, it's Amazon Basics cable.
Sure. Yeah, any of them I think are, yeah, that's good. Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Another follow-up from listener Ken from last week's episode 904. He says, in your recent Opening All the Doors episode, you discussed the optimizing storage issue. I tackled limited storage by basically copping out. He says, I have a 2015 13-inch MacBook Pro that came with a 512 gig SSD. Last year, I upgraded the SSD to 1 terabyte with a new drive from OWC and somehow, magically, filled up a big part of that too. How did I deal with my storage issues? Well, in July, I just bought an M1 iMac with a 2 terabyte SSD. Now, 1.26 terabytes are still available. Yeah, I've been, I'll say, unintentionally solving this problem that way. Yeah. It's my storage space on my recent purchases or acquisitions of computers has been just going up, and I'm not proud of letting that happen, but it is happening. So, there you go. Yep.
No, I just had, I believe it or not, I just had this happen with my MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
There was a software update for Xcode, which is typically rather large, and I said update, and it's like, you don't have enough disk space. And I'm like, what?
Don't you have a 1 terabyte drive in there?
Yes.
Dude.
So, yeah, I don't know if I have to reinstall the OS or something. One way I found of solving this problem, so APFS doesn't always release disk space in a timely fashion.
Yep.
I found that going into recovery and running this utility actually nudges it to get its act together.
Oh, interesting. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. So you can't just run disk utility in regular mode, though. You have to run it in recovery to do that.
I chose to run it in recovery.
Okay.
But I suppose I could have run it locally as well.
Did you have to?
Should have run. You know what? I should have run Omni Disk Sweeper.
Yeah.
I've just found that again, the free space doesn't appear magically instantly.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I wonder. There was a command that I used in Unix to free up space called sync, SYNC, and it was sync version 8. I would remember. And if you do a man for sync, which is also sync 8, it is there on Mac OS in the terminal. It forces a completion of pending disk writes, but that would, at least on whatever flavor of Linux I was fighting with at the time, that would be sort of the regular way of just like, yep, this will clean up. Now, I don't know if that will trigger the Finder to display the right free space for us, but it might still clear it out. Yeah. Yeah. Alex in the chat room has some advice here. He says, try killing some cache files. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Which Omni Disk Sweeper or Clean My Mac Space Lens is probably even better with that. Use Spotlight to find apps that you haven't opened in a long time and delete them and all of their support files and dependencies. I like to use Hazel, but App Cleaner would also do it to help, catch all of the files that need to go along with a deletion. So I'll put Hazel and App Cleaner and Clean My Mac. Let's see. And he had one other. Oh yeah. Move your photos library. Right. On my desktop, I have my photos library on an external drive and I have everything download. On my laptop, I have optimized storage turned on for my photos library. And that actually works. That's a wonderful way to move forward. So that would be my advice there. Are you letting your whole photos library download to your laptop too?
Yeah, it's about 140 gigs.
Okay. So big, but not like, it could be bigger.
Yeah, but again, as you know, I got a 1 terabyte SSD.
Yeah.
I don't know how it, got to this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Try, I've really become a fan of Space Lens inside of Clean My Mac for telling me where things are. It's just, I don't know. I used Omni Disk Sweeper for a long time, and then it got wonky with the whole full disk access thing, and you had to hold your mouth just right to get it to work. They've addressed a lot of that, and it's back to being a little more simple to use. However, Clean My Mac is just, I don't know. It shows me what I want to see. I really like it. So, let's do some cool stuff found and get out of here, shall we, John? You want to start us off with Paul?
Oh, yep.
I can start with my thing if you want to. I'll start with my thing, and then we'll do Paul. So mine is the Elecjet Apollo Ultra power bank. I am always on the search for the right power bank to have in my backpack, like my carry bag that goes with me. And there's a couple things that I want it to be able to do. I want it to have a USB-A port so that I can plug something into it and charge, something simple like a phone or an Apple Watch or something like that. I also want it to have a USB-C port with power delivery so that it can charge my laptop in a pinch. Those are really the two things. And it's that latter one, being able to charge the laptop, that has meant over the past couple of years, I've needed to get bigger and fatter and heavier power banks to do that, to deliver power delivery. The reality, though, is I've never once actually needed to use one because today's laptops, especially the M1s, have battery life for, 20 hours or 15 hours or something. So, I'm not finding myself in a scenario where I need to have a few extra sips during the middle of the day. But I still want that as a backup because, don't get caught. Well, this Elecjet Apollo Ultra is, it's tiny. If you're watching the video, you can see the size of it. It's about the size of an iPhone, maybe a little thicker. It's about the same weight as an iPhone, so really thin. It's only a 10,000 milliamp hour battery, but it does have USB-C with power delivery. It'll deliver 87 watts of power. Now, it's not going to fully charge your laptop because it's only 10,000 milliamp hours, but it's enough to give you a few sips to get you over the hump. And as it turns out, with my life, that's what I need. And it's super lightweight. So I'm really stoked about this thing. We'll put a link in the show notes, of course, but it's from elecjet.co. And I'm happy about it. The Elecjet Apollo Ultra. And they say that it's live on Indiegogo right now. So you can get yours ordered. I will pull up pricing in a second, but I think it's using graphene to be the metal that stores the battery. I don't know. It's like we've had gallium nitrate or nitride. I don't remember. GAN, we'll call it. So I'll get it right. But now it's got graphene, and so that I think that helps with the weight. Is how we're getting there. But I said 87 watts. My notes were wrong. 80 watts of charging capacity. So yeah. Very cool. I'm stoked about this thing. And looking on Indiegogo, at least at the moment, it's $69, and you can have it delivered in January. So there you go. That's my thing. Did you come up with Paul's suggestion, John?
Yes. So Paul says, I found the site www.rsync.net, cloud storage for offsite backup. It describes itself as, we give you an empty Unix file system to access with any SSH tool built on ZFS for data security and fault tolerance. You can back up any other cloud with your rsync.net account. I thought this is something that John would appreciate. To me, it's the ultimate in cross-platform backup. You have rsync, you have backup.
Huh.
Okay, and their pricing looks reasonable, but it looks like they support more. So they list a whole bunch of things here on their page. So in addition to rsync, it looks like you could do SFTP, SCP, Borg, rclone, RESTIC. I haven't even heard of some of these things. So there you go.
I like this. That's interesting. So their minimum pricing is $10 a month. It's 2.5 cents per gig, up to a terabyte. And you've got a 400 gig minimum order. Actually, it's up to 10 terabytes. Sorry. And then at 10 terabytes, it drops to 2 cents per gig. But so $10 a month. Okay. We're getting past the Backblaze pricing and things like that. But you do have this flexibility. My first thought was that you could use ARQ with this from Haystack Software. And ARQ works great. I have it backing up to a Minio store which is an S3, open source S3 clone that I'm running on my Synology disk station. And that's flawless, and works really well. But this, I like this option. That's not bad. Huh.
Yeah, they do. All right. So they do daily snapshots. At different levels, unlimited email and phone support. Okay, that's nice. And the higher tier plans looks like they offer physical media shipment, so that's nice.
Cool.
Who who else does that for you?
Does which?
Is it Backblaze? Will actually throw it on a hard drive for you?
Yeah, I think I know they were doing it. I don't know if they're doing it still, but yes, that's right. Yeah. Yes. Very cool. Well, I think that's going to bring us to the end here. A couple of cool stuffs found, and we're on our way. Actually, you know what? Let's throw in on Twitter, Dulcesita tweeted that T-Mobile is offering a $10 credit on your $10 per month credit if you are a T-Mobile customer and sign up for YouTube TV. So for those of you cutting the cord and that are T-Mobile customers, you can save $10 a month and get YouTube TV. I think that would make it $59 a month or something. So yeah, cool stuff. I like it. Thanks so much, everybody. As we said earlier in the show, feedback at MacGeekGab.com is where you can send things in, unless you're a premium listener, in which case it's premium at MacGeekGab.com. We'd love to hear from you either way. I think
feedback at MacGeekGab.com.
Feedback at MacGeekGab.com. That's correct. Yeah. Go subscribe to our newsletter. Go to MacGeekGab.com and subscribe there. You get the show notes delivered right to your doorstep or your email doorstep every week. That way you get all the links for all the things that we just talked about. The apps and the cool stuff found and the troubleshooting tips and all that stuff is right there. So go check it out. And there's also links to all our sponsors in there too. So you can go check those out too. That's what I got. You got anything else for today, John?
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us for the last hour and change, folks. Thanks for having fun with us. We got a little silly here with our change. Don't go changing. Or do. Change is good.
No, it's not.
Well, we'll be back next week. Until then, have a good week. Have fun. And don't get caught.
Made up.
See you next week, John.
Man.
Oh, no, you're getting caught.
Somebody's like burning down the neighborhood. They've been going all morning.